evening. Just a quick GME meme stock, and then I'll have a look at some ZA stocks from Twitter handle that I think has some great stocks with some really great liquidity to look at, and just great stocks heading in a contrarian way to the rest of the market. So GME had a drop in price yesterday, but it loosened its liquidity. Something probably to do with buying back of sold calls. Anyway, I can't think of another reason that would happen. We haven't really seen the sort of accumulative price pressure that we saw through this period here. As we can see, we've had this really big tight period here of buying of the underlying, which has given us this drive here to get the price back up into this volume node. We just have not seen that sort of dip. We had a couple of good dips here during that buying period, but we've really been in the top and quite a loose period, which has played out into the price, and again we've seen that go. We need some tightening, some buying of the underlying, but we also need to see some Vanna or gamma effects in the market, which aren't going to be happening in a really volatile market until we get a lot of maybe a lot of the put hedging come off at the end of the earnings seasons. So this is sorry, I'm on Siri here, not on GME. So GME, if we have a look at it, it had a little bit of higher DPI here, a little bit of accumulation, but then that's really dropped off again. It's nothing like the accumulation here that we saw in September, October, which I was just showing you. That period of early September or mid-September through to mid-October, it's had a high DPI through that whole period, with no price discovery. You can see the price is really flat. This here, we've got high DPI here, but that's also been going to be caused by the market makers buying, and so we've seen both high DPI, so buying of the underlying in the OTC markets, and also it's quite squeezy because the market makers have been forced to go to the bid, so they've passed that on in IV prices. Only thing to note here is from the 21st of January, we've lost a lot of the delta here. We've probably lost more delta in the calls than we did in the puts, but we can see here this put reduction as the prices drop down into the bottom there on the 21st. And again, we've seen some more puts reduced here. So if those puts were having any pressure, selling pressure in the market, that's just dissipated. So we might start to see some upward price discovery, but I'm still of the feeling that we're going to get sideways price for GME for a while. Let's just go back. Of the others, Faraday looks good in the open interest. It's had quite good DPI. Well, let's just have a quick look at here the liquidity. We can see that it's had these great periods of building through. Here's one here. Here's another one here of building before we've had this recent price increases, and again we can see it here again, and this could be the buying back of calls. We can go and have a look in buying back of puts or buying back of sold calls. We're just going to have a look in a second at what we can see in the underlying, but here again we see this irregular illiquidity here and those two sections before, which will have really tightened it up. So let's just have a quick look in on Faraday. Are you going? No, sorry, I do apologise. Here's Faraday, and again we can see these large buy periods, very high DPI. Here's that second period of high DPI, and here we go. Here's this most recent couple of sections of high DPI, and with them we've had a couple of really strong buy signals there in the green, which is just a mix of a little bit of math on 4 bits of data that come in and correlate to good price discovery, have a high correlation of good price discovery, especially big spikes. Here in Faraday we can see this could be that liquidity there, that might have been that entrance there of some selling, some sold puts, and so forcing the market maker to buy the market, and that's what's tightened it there, because that's right up in the single deltas. So that's quite a large chunk. As we can see, it's really strengthened. We've had a lot of this hedging come off from that recent price jump, has come off, and again the market, it's ready to be reactive. We'll just have a look at Siri while we've got this one open here. So Siri again, it's had a great big DPI accumulation there. It's had no, this one here is probably just hedging, being bought in the off market, the HC market. But here's really high DPI, and we've got a good price. We've got a good buy signal there. Again, we can see a huge reduction here on the right hand side of puts, and in the higher deltas here out on the right hand side, and here in the left hand side of the calls. The higher delta calls had a big increase in them, and these sold calls here have contracted substantially, making Siri a real candidate for a blast off. So if we just go back and let's have a look and see what Siri is doing, you can just see it's very tight here, very tight liquidity. It's really tightened up through this dip here, as we saw in the DPI from the HC markets. The other Chewy and Chewy is a gamma ladder, and the gamma keeps being reduced, so it's not banging its head on the roof, and it can keep rising, so it's not getting too loose above it, and the gamma holding it down. Again, we can see this very loose red area, so I would say that we need to see this drop down as it did here to get more price, and all of these little drops downs have tightened it up and give the price discovery going to the north. BB, Blackberry, very similar. Maybe not as large a price increase, but we've got a great rising market here, and it's a gamma ladder. And look, it's had a pullback. I haven't yet gone and had a look at the underlying to see whether there's a lot of extra hedging in there, but it didn't look to be. And look, just judging by how illiquid it is at the moment, I don't think that any hedging has changed. We can see here these high periods. This might look a little bit high, this first period here. Yes, there was some high gamma because of the increase in price, but it's really nothing compared to these previous periods that have had very high loose liquidity before we've had these big buys which have sent BB through the roof with very high DPI. I don't think there was anything else to look at. Amplex was just hanging on, I think. It's just tightened up, and it's a little bit looser because of the price movement yesterday. Let's just have a quick look at Z Stocks on Twitter. Has some he or she nominates some great stocks to watch. We can see this great build here. This will be if we went and had a look at Ampex. Ampex, Imperius Technologies. These are great build periods happening here, tightening the liquidity before we're seeing this rise here. And now we haven't seen much dissipation of the underlying, and it's still tight enough compared to previous periods. If we look here, this previous sort of price is the same, but we're still right under that. We're still much tighter in liquidity, and so hopefully we'll see this start to move to the upside if the market is more favourable to it. Maybe it's waiting to get a bit of a burst coming in here into earnings. Not quite certain. Now these stocks here that ZA Stocks looks at, this is a great stock here. We can see going from tight liquidity here, getting this fantastic price discovery, moving up, and then moving into this loose period of liquidity before just starting to get a bit of reactionary tightening, and hopefully it's going to move to the upside in Datadogs. TEM, I just went and had a look. I didn't think it had an option chain, but it's got a great option chain, and the positioning here is fantastic for that. And you can just see how tight it is. This is very tight, very tight liquidity here, and there's lots of room to move compared to when it first hit the market. This has probably been caused by the increase in options. Since it's such a small period of time that it's been traded, they're now really having an effect on the available stocks in the float to be bought. There's some crazy ones here. Plantar looks good. It is in a very high loose liquidity at the moment. It's in one of these sections that are, going to hold it back. I would hope to see if this would be starting to drop down and tighten, with the price still moving north. That probably needs a bit of cross hedging needs to come off to get that to loosen up. Snows, similar chart. Snowflake looks fabulous. Again, it's in a high loose liquidity place. It's got some quite heavy put hedging there that needs to come off. It was put on earlier when it hit at the end of the month, 28th, 27th, when it hit this high. We had about 4 or 5 days of those high puts. They will come off, and it just needs to break this price to the north, and then it'll be off to the races. Another stock here. This is a nuclear reactor. They do nuclear reactor parts, I think, or they do little ones. Engages in development of fission reactors. So fission being low temperature reactors, which don't need as much energy to get them going. Don't know anything about this stock, but don't know whether it turned. No, it doesn't have any financials. Was there any turnover in that? No financials. So it's quite speculative. We can see here that there's a couple of times a lot of buying of the underlying, and here we go. We've had buying of the underlying, and now we've got price discovery heading north. Great stock to stay on. Here, this is a little bit the same as Ampex that I was looking at before. Empyrean, very sort of similar chart. It's dropping down, and you can see it isn't really. Here's a very high bit. Here's a really high bit. But if you look at these longer periods, moving averages of liquidity, they're not all that high, and we can see it here in the irregular liquidity too. It's had a little bit of a build on this dip down here. It's a good looking chart. Anyway, thank you very much, ZA Stocks, for letting us look at some great stocks there with great liquidity from our indicators, and also being able to have a look at the underlyings behind them. Have a great day's trading today. Thank you very much. Oh, actually, why don't I just quickly, there was a couple of scalps today. God, irresistible. So the scalps today that I saw this scalp. This looked like a great scalp here in the 30 minutes. Probably looks really boring. But yesterday we saw this reactionary liquidity through the day's trading, which isn't particularly obvious, but you can see it just dropping and tightening and tightening and tightening, and then when it hits the bottom, just before the top, we start to see it loosening. So there was lots of added value there. But then all day we can see it's just been slowly dropping down during the day, gliding down, and now it's just started to tighten up. I thought yesterday's trade was a great day's trade on that. And then if we just have a look at Bitcoin had a really beautiful trade as well. This again, it's just sort of leaked down here and dropped into lower liquidity. This would have kept you in the trade, I would have thought, because at no stage did it really look like it was going to break to very low, to tighten up, very low illiquid place. And here it's hit this. This is the first time for the day it's really become very illiquid. Was during the end of the dark and the start of the lit period with the American Stock Exchange yesterday, and we've had great price discovery. And as we can see, it's just tightened, and as soon as this has started coming up here, as soon as it's hit the top and hit the tightest, the lowest liquidity part, as soon as it hit this top of this price, it's just slowly risen, and it's given you this great opportunity. And you can just see here, this here in the layered liquidity, it's kept you in the trade because you know you're out of this reactionary liquidity, and the liquidity is just slowly loosening. It's only really just started to tighten a bit recently, and we really need to see that tighten up before that's advantageous. Sorry that I wanted to add those on. Thank you. I hope you've had a nice look at some scalps there for the day. We'll speak to you soon. Thanks. Have a great day's trading.